J.O. from Hillsboro. And Paul, you're next.
I'm often I'm often first. This is Paul, N2XZF for the little town of Butner.
Ken, KO4DHJ from Durham.
I'm Ev. I actually do not have a call sign. I'm not a licensed ham operator. I I've been told. I yes, I did. I'm also from Durham. Yeah.
I'm Dan, KR4UB, Southwest Orange County.
Hey guys, I'm Sarah. I'm from Mebane. I just got my license. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Right over there at that table. I am KR4NGS.
I'm Chris, KE5ABB here in Mebane.
Bruce, N1LN, Chapel Hill.
Lori, N1YXU, Chapel Hill.
Dave, W4SAR, Efland. Brad, WZ4BSS, Hillsboro.
Sam, KJ4VWG from Durham.
W4FK Bob, Hillsboro.
Karen, KD4YJZ, Efland.
Chip, KF4WBK, Chapel Hill.
Neil, KR4BVU, Hillsboro.
I'm Sammy, KK4TJH from Durham.
John, KM4MDR from BFE, also known as Efland.
Fred, KN4QBZ, Pittsburgh.
I'm Dave, K4DJW from Rougemont, and we've got the list going around if anybody wants a t-shirt or a hat.
I'm Aurora, KN4VXB.
That was Hillsboro.
I'm Matthew, and sorry for the people on Zoom. We're currently trying to figure out how to get video back. I'm Matthew, KQ4ZYW. Oh, we're live now. And on Zoom, we have also, I'm from Mebane, if I didn't mention that. And on Zoom, we have Ron, KR4RON, JR, N4JQR, John, KQ4WZA, Charles, KQ4TNF, Randy, KF4O, Jerry, KR4NJ, Dave, W4SAR, Mark, KR3AM, and someone whose Zoom name is SSJS21. I'm sorry, I don't know your call sign.
It's Steve, KZ1X, Chapel Hill.
Time for me. Wilson, W4BOH, Hillsboro.
Okay. The three things we're going to go over this evening, we're going to have a field day report, quarterly finance report, and then a presentation on MeshCore for hams. Dave. Mike.
Or I can use my battlefield command voice. Say again? Yes, I am. It's up there, actually. Yeah. Oh, it is yours. Oh, never mind. All right. Hang on. I'll get my presentation up in just a second. And all right. Okay, as I said, it looked like everybody had a really good time with Field Day this year. I'm very happy to report on that. And let's see. There we go. Some of the highlights we had this year was that all the transmitters used emergency power. So thanks to Aurora for putting that bug in my ear to give it a try, because we actually had enough battery power on hand to pull it off. All six transmitters we had going had sufficient battery power for the full time we were operating. That was a real challenge. The last time we did that was when we used to run QRP power. We didn't have quite enough on hand to run at 100 watts maximum, but this time we did, and without issue. And unlike last year, the signal sideband stations really crushed it this year. They had tons of contacts. I'll give you the full breakdown on that later. Last year they struggled. This year was not the case. At least if you were trying to work 15 or 10, then you still had a struggle. But 20 meters and lower did very well this year. Moving all the digital stations to the barn seemed to please everybody. I didn't hear much in the way of complaints of Digi getting in there. CW, was it better for you with the Digi this year? It was much better this year. Good. And the only complaint I ever got was from the 40 sideband station. If I use my G5RV, which is horizontally polarized, I came in on them hard. But if I went to the 40-meter vertical antenna, they didn't hear me. So next year, I'm probably going to be making a 20-meter vertical to use as well. And that way, I'll have multiple bands I could work at with minimizing interference to my single sideband brethren out there. No thunderstorms, at least at our site. Now, all the bad weather passed either north of us or to the south of us. So none of our operations were shut down due to the weather this year. Last year, I think we lost about an hour or so of operating time because of lightning popping around, but that was not the case this year. And as I mentioned, 15 meters was mostly down, but openings were exploited. And the really good thing is we had lots and lots of participants. We had a lot of help setting up, and we had a lot of help breaking down the camp as well, and just having people all the way around. Unlike last year, the digital station was manned around the clock, so that was great. I actually had the luxury of about 3 hours of sleep this year instead of just 2. So actually closer to 4 hours maybe. But we had a good time. Oops. And I didn't mean to do that. But all right, let me cycle through this again. All right. Okay, as I mentioned, lots of new hams and prospective hams came by. So we had some people who had their first QSOs happening at Field Day, which is great. So anybody else, you did? Anybody else here had their very first time? I know there was some other new hams that are probably not here tonight, but they came out and we encouraged them to get over the right and give it a shot. We were visited by served agency officials and also by an elected official, so we picked up the bonus points for that. The Friday potluck was hugely attended. John, how many did we have, would you say? 57. All right. And yes, sir. Oh, I thought I had that. Better. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. And as I mentioned before, lots of people helped with the setup, and we started doing preparations for this like a week and 2 weeks in advance of Field Day itself, which really helped a lot. But what I really appreciated was teardown, because we've been tired, we've been operating, and it was just great for me to be stepping down from taking apart my radio station upstairs and find out all the coax I had out there. And one of those pieces of coax was 200 feet long, was already curled up and waiting by my car for me, and people helped take down the antennas and all. It made it that much more pleasant. And I'm speaking for myself and for the other band captains. We are very grateful for that help, really, at the end of the day there. That was fantastic. Okay. Well, here's the results. And it's broken down by band and by what the mode was. CW had a total of 1,244 contacts. All right. Digital Digital had a total of 268. We were actually slightly down from last year, like 9 contacts perhaps, but CW was better than last year. But what was the really big jump, and I'll show you the comparison in another slide, was single sideband. All the sideband stations had more than 1,000 contacts, as you can see, 1,056 contacts. Really good work. In particular, the 20-meter station, look at that, 572 voice contacts they did. So that's phenomenal. I think it's probably one of the best records we've had in some years on phone contacts. So good work there, guys. And anybody can jump in anytime with a question if I'm not clear on anything. I sure hope so. All right. And here's the comparison between the 2 years. As you can see, actually, I take that back. CW was slightly down, but phone, what a difference. Last year, I told you how it was a big slog for them to try to get contacts. Last year, they had under 300 contacts. This year was more than 1,000 for phone contacts. And that's great because that's the station where we send a lot of the new inexperienced hams to work on things because I had a lot of help with the digital. You know, it takes a little bit of getting used to work it and everything. But if you're a new ham, pretty much sideband is where they send you. And as you can see, the high sideband stations were booming. They were getting good returns. So that made it that much more pleasant for those new hams or people have been inactive for a while. They actually got a lot of contacts going. And yep. Uh-huh. Moving digital far away. That's what I heard. Well, I got sent to the gulag, but the gulag was air conditioned, so I'm not unhappy about that. But I'll be posting this also on the those of you coming to the DFMA meeting tomorrow, you're going to see all this all over again. But I will post all this onto the reflector as well, so y'all can see it. Any questions so far? Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm about to get into that. I was able to count for 4, so we got 80 points out of that. So, yeah, I'll get into that. The field day submitted final score. It's okay. So QSO points for single sideband is 1 point. For digital and CW, they count as 2 points apiece. So for single sideband, 1,056 points. Digital was 536 points, and CW was 2,488. So the total QSO points we had was 4,080. And since we used 100 watts or less, there's a power multiplier there. When we used to do QRP, it was a 5 times multiplier, but our returns were so bad, and so was so much harder work to get returns. I think we did better actually just going to this, so people actually heard people talking back to them. So basically, the 4,080 points is double to 8,160 points. And then we have all the bonus points. As I mentioned before, we had enough batteries to go on emergency power. That gets you 100 points per station. Since we had 6 HF stations, that was boom, 600 points we got right there. And then the field day bulletin, I was able to copy on PSK 31 on Friday night, and that was 100 points. The safety checklist, Bill and Joe went around the camp and did that, took care of that, sent me a copy of it. That was 50 points. Natural power, 100 points. As it turns out, the battery bank in the barn is solely fed by solar power. The batteries are only charged with solar panels. That counts for natural power. So all the digital stations and the 10-meter station in the barn counted as natural power. So that gave us 100 points right there. Very good. For those of you who didn't hear, the For those that were worried about us using up the battery capacity in the barn, because we had 3 stations running off it at the time. 10 meters had 2 stations, but they never had them both on at the same time. As Wilson's is at best, we drew it down by only about 25% on the battery bank. So we were doing good there. All right, youth ops, as I mentioned before, it's 20. We get 20 points per youth operator who makes a QSO contact. I was able to document 4 of them. So we got 80 points. If we had one more youngin, we would have had the full 100 we could have gotten. But hey, we'll take what we can get. Elected official, we had that gentleman who came in from I think it was the Carborough City Council, and that counted as an elected official. That was 100 points. And then we had several served agency officials, the fire departments. We had one person also served on the Chatham EOC. That was 100 points right there. And then I went and did a web submission, and that was 50 points. So the bonus total was 1,180 points. So if you add that to the QSO points, there, it gives us 9,340 points. And as you can see, we were almost 2,000 points ahead of what we did last year. So well done, everybody. Any questions on what I've been running through so far? Yes, Paul. Yep. No. Yeah, the question was, some people were asking about home operations and such. Clubs who have members operating offsite, the offsite operators can submit their scores and declare an affiliation with a club. And all those scores are aggregated. So the score you see here and anybody offsite who worked field day and has a club affiliation and submits their score, that aggregate score appears in parentheses next to our ranking on field day. It doesn't count for anything other than bragging rights amongst the different clubs. So it kind of encourages club participation. So if anybody has worked field day from home who's a member of the club and they have not submitted yet, I think even if you have submitted, you can go back and edit it to tell them that you're affiliated. The affiliation is Orange County Radio Amateurs and Durham FM Association. There's a drop-down box when you go for club affiliation in there. You start typing Orange County and the rest of it will fill out in the drop-down window. I know, that's why you got to keep on typing. So you'll see Durham also in there. All right. And that, okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
Name is Bruce, not Mike. Sorry. Some of you folks in the room are already aware of this, but for those that aren't, and we can also get it recorded for those that hear it. Lori and I were not able to attend field day this year because our youngest 2 grandsons were graduating from high school. So we were in upstate New York instead. Last 2 to graduate from high school. So now we're worried about weddings and college graduations, but we should be okay next year. So Saturday night, we were on our way back from daughter number 2's house and we were hungry. So we stopped in Delhi, which is a little pub and restaurant called the Shire in Delhi, New York, in Catskills. And we walk in there and surprising to us, our grandchildren were sitting there with their respective girlfriends and boyfriends. So we had dinner with them and then we left. And then when we left there to go back south, Lori looked across the street, and that's where the center of Delhi is, little town square. And she said, "Look at that sign over there. It says Amateur Radio Field Day." So we drove across the street, and there in the center of Delhi, in a little gazebo, they had 2 stations set up, and they're operating field day. And I immediately, we introduced ourselves, and I went over to their logging software and noticed they'd already worked us on 20-meter sideband. So one of you folks had already done that. So I said to the guy. So I said to the ham that was really running the thing, whose name was Kevin, I said, "Can I borrow the microphone on 40 meters to see if I can get a hold of our club back in North Carolina?" He said, "Oh yeah, sure, go ahead." So let's make it a real easy contact. I called Joe on my cell phone and I said, "Joe, this is Bruce. I'm in upstate New York. Are you on 40 sideband? It was nighttime. So he said, yeah. I said, where are you? He said, 7173. So I tuned the 7173. I called K4SAR. He came right back and I worked him. So one of those 40-meter sideband cues is me. At the end of the story, and I'll just keep it quickly, Kevin, who's the guy running field day, used to be our oldest daughter's next door neighbor till she moved, and he plowed her driveway all winter long with his plow and his Jeep. So, I mean, the world shrinks, keeps shrinking. Anyway, that was a fun contact. I did operate field day this year.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments they want to make about this year's field day? Matt?
This year's field day was only my second field day so far, but I think it was even better than the last one. I think the station that I was band captain of made about 65 to 70% of the total sideband contacts. So thank you for everyone else that helped out with the 2080 station. I had a blast, and I also just want to thank everyone that met my nephew Michael, who stopped by for a little bit because he's interested in ham radio and wanted to check it out. And he had a blast, especially with helping put up the antenna for Joe's station. He kept talking about it. I heard from his parents that literally the entire ride home, that was all he talked about. So he had a blast. So I just want to thank you for everyone that was open to him and nice to him. And I just feel really lucky to be in this club.
I had a good time and I made some progress this year. I did less work than I've ever done before for field day, and it was very nice. Enjoyed seeing everybody, particularly the spectacular garage performance. Fair warning, next year we're going to start earlier and we're going to put up antennas, particularly for the Land of Magic, because ours were too close together, and we could get more points with a little better antenna setup. We'll put them up for everybody, but we're definitely going to improve Land of Magic antennas. We have 80 and 40, which are close together, and both of them are close to the beam. So whatever we did, we were close to something.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss not to say thanks to John, KM4MDR. He did a phenomenal job getting the taking care of the logistics for us, making sure we were well ready for that big potluck dinner on Friday night, and kept us hydrated through the weekend. And we had a good breakfast on Sunday morning as well. So, anything you wanted to add, John?
I just want to thank everybody that helped set up for potluck, and all week long I had more help than I've ever had this year. So it certainly made my job a lot easier. And thanks to everyone. If I haven't already thanked you personally, please accept this as a gratitude for all the help. It was tremendous.
Anyone else? So.
Just one quick question. Were we able to work, get all states and all of Canada work?
I put it on the reflector. I actually should have put it on here. The nice little map they give you with N3FJP. We worked every single station in the United States, every single section, I should say. And in Canada, we just missed Newfoundland and Labrador, Northern Ontario, and the Northern Territories, Yukon, and none of it. So it was just 3 RAC sections that we missed. Yep, we did. We did. Yep. All right. Well, I think the general theme we had this year was that 2 things. We all had a great time. The results were fantastic, but most of all, we had so many people come in and help, and that made a huge difference. It made it more pleasant for everyone. So let's do that again next year. What do you say? All right. Thank you all. Got a cable.
Okay.
Hello. Hey, I'm Sammy.
Sarah.
Nice to meet you, Sarah. Congratulations. Yep. What's your name, sir? Matthew. Are you going to advance the slides for me, or you got a clicker? Okay. This mic feels a little spicy, so I'll try to mind my mic manners. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sammy, KK4TJH, like I said before.
My name is Ev. I'm unlicensed. LBI Bass is a username that I typically use online. So if you search that up on something like Discord, you can find me there.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but I'm really happy to be here. I'm also happy to see lots of people that I saw at Field Day. Thank you, Wilson, for hosting at your place. Let's get started. I got special permission to leave work today, so I'm not here representing the Durham Fire Department, but I'm a firefighter. Also on Task Force 8 with Mr. KE5ABB over here, Chris. And we are excited to talk to you about an open source project. Next slide's good. Okay, so there was a lot of different directions that we could go for this presentation today. I decided to go this way where we'll talk about the physical layer a little bit. I felt like maybe that was the most appropriate. And hopefully we'll get through this and with enough time to answer questions if we can get there. So, okay. Yeah, if you just want to sit on that for a second. Yeah, so MeshCore is something that is a LoRa project essentially, and we will not talk about the MeshCore application as much, but I think that part of it we can cover that. It's not complicated. It's just an app. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so some of the reason why MeshCore is exciting is because it is exploiting, this trade-off between the data rate for range versus throughput. And, there's lots of different protocols out there and lots of different applications that we all know and love for different use cases. MeshCore in particular was developed for LoRa and has just seen lots of really sort of magical success in what it's been able to achieve with LoRa and some of the choices that the designers and engineers made in developing the application. And we'll cover a few of the properties of LoRa briefly, and let's move on. Okay, so LoRa is a modulation technique that uses what's called chirp spread spectrum. And it is a technique that is really clever in that it is something of a frequency shift keying technique, but it also looks really interesting on a waterfall. If you look at it, it's got these things called chirps. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to make any screenshots of from an analyzer. Myself, I do have one screenshot that I found on the internet that we'll see in a few slides. And it uses this technique to, convey its symbols on the spectrum. It does so in a really clever way and has really good success down into the noise floor. And I think that plays a big part in the success of how these meshes are working, and how far the mesh has been able to reach. Okay, we can move on from here. Okay. So there's this parameter called spreading factor for spread spectrum, and it is a parameter that defines how long in the time domain the signal uses to send this signal. The default spreading factor for MeshCore is 7.
Yeah, spread factor of 7 for the 1.5.
And you can see, yeah, and you can see that the longer spreading factor means that it takes more time to send all the symbols. So it's much slower, but it does a better job getting the signal through the noise floor. I've included some links if you want to review and read more. So let's move on. Okay. Of course, another thing that the LoRa chipsets are really good at is receiver sensitivity. I don't know how they do it, but Semtech just
It's magic. It's kind of unbelievable how sensitive these radios are. I have picked up from some local repeaters messages as far away as like 50 miles without any sort of ducting or atmospheric effects whatsoever. This morning, I was getting messages Pennsylvania. These radios generally transmit at 22 decibel kilowatt. It's around an eighth of a watt transmit power. The higher transmit power nodes, I have one installed in this little box here. That's 1 watt. That is the legal limit. You cannot go above 1 watt. But even then, even with just an eighth of a watt, these things are able to travel for dozens, and if it's high enough, hundreds of miles.
Did you mean to say you're getting signals directly from Pennsylvania? No repeaters? Yeah.
Just to put a perspective on these numbers, that 120 dBm, that's probably as high as you'll ever see one of our FM VHF receivers. On the OCRA UHF receivers, we do put gallium arsenide technology in front of the radio. Best we could get it down to is about neg 130. And you're getting down far below that. You're getting down to the thermal noise floor level. What that is, I could bring a resistor here and say this is a signal generator. I think about isn't it about neg 150, about before you have to start supercooling? But anyway, you're down at the absolute noise floor where just the thermal noise of a resistor or any component in a radio being at room temperature, that is a noise floor. That's awesome numbers.
So would you mind if I put a few words in here? I'm an old engineer, so these words are important. The sensitivity of that receiver is no better than any other receiver. You have processing gain, which drives your apparent sensitivity down. And the chirp they're talking about is a beep, okay? Beep. So you can imagine if you're listening for beep or if you're listening for beep. Anybody ever heard the term convolution or what's the other one? Sorry. Correlation processing.
Correlation.
So the computers are listening all the time, not for beep, but for beep, which is hundreds of times longer than beep. So they have a lot more chance to hear something, and they don't have to hear it all. They just have to hear some of it. So they get a few points along that chirp. And they say, there it is. So it doesn't matter that they missed some, they got some. And that's why these are apparently so much more sensitive. Sorry.
No, thank you for adding that. Yeah, it's the correlation and the the design of it makes it easier for the hardware to detect the pattern of that sweep. It's working great. We're enjoying it. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so this is not to scale. This is a little bit of ASCII art, but just to give you just a visual of how down in the noise towards the noise floor we're being able to get signals out of. Okay, next slide. One benefit to the MeshCore repeaters that are typically deployed is that they don't have any feed lines at all. The nodes themselves are normally, on the roofs or up on the towers or in the trees, like Ev is holding here. There's absolutely no feed line loss whatsoever. Maybe just a jumper of a feed or two. Of course, but what Wilson was talking about is really where we get the most gains. So we're not losing anything through feed line, and we're getting the benefit of those signals. Okay, moving on. And of course, the people who made MeshCore looked at the protocol and made something really special, I think. MeshCore is really working super well on LoRa, and has seen tremendous growth since it was released. And we've been seeing lots of really successful, functional messaging across not just like a local area, but a true wide area communications network over mesh. All right, next slide. Okay, so MeshCore itself is essentially a firmware that was developed for LoRa. It's an open source project on GitHub that was released in 2024, and that is really quite young. It comes sort of as an iteration after Meshtastic, if folks have heard of that project, which I think came about in about 2021. And I remember playing with Meshtastic at the time, and haven't looked back since MeshCore was released. And so let's move to the next slide. Okay, so here's some MeshCore by the numbers. It does work in the ISM band, 902 to 928 megahertz. I know it's ironic because we're at a ham radio club and this is definitely not part 97, but I personally like to just go where the fun is. And the benefit, there's lots of benefits to this band. One is that it's doesn't care if you have a ham license or not. And so lots of folks can play with it, whether they have a ham license or not. And also there's lots of hardware and antennas for this band for a variety of applications. There's other users on this band, and I think most recently trending was probably the helium miner sort of crypto technology that folks were playing with in the last 5 or so years.
Kind of blew up during COVID. Helium became very popular sort of during COVID, and then turns out it was kind of a rug pull. So all the hardware immediately lost pretty much all of its value, and it was being sold for pennies instead of hundreds or even thousands of dollars.
Thanks for that.
Sorry.
Was there a question?
There are LoRa radios that are available on the 433 megahertz. What kind of license would you need for those?
433? Right.
Yeah, so the 433 megahertz. Yeah. Yeah, 433 is usable underneath the ham license, but MeshCore by default is encrypted. or it has a form of medium strength encryption on it. So it would not be legal in the United States to use it. Meshtastic has a ham mode, so you can actually still use Meshtastic with ham level power and ham licensing, but you're sort of isolated from all the other Meshtastic hardware and the rest of the network because of the fact that you are not allowed to run any encryption. By default, Meshtastic and MeshCore both use encryption.
Yeah, I do have a couple slides on the encryption, and I was going to bring that up. So thank you for explaining that, Ev. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. The encryption is integral to the application. It's not able to be turned off. In fact, the node itself is identified with the public key of the public-private pair key that's generated when you instantiate your device. And at the moment, I doubt there's any plans for them to make any modifications in order to run it in ham mode. However, it does bring up something that I was going to mention, which is that, for amateurs who like to experiment with software, it's an open source project. And so perhaps if you are a developer or are interested in mesh communications with LoRa and wanted to implement something for amateur radio, I personally think that'd be pretty cool. Okay, so the infrastructure of the network itself, was there another slide or did I forget it? Okay. You can skip that. Okay. The infrastructure itself is really it's just brilliant. The concept of the mesh is really special because it's so easy to do. The meshes are self-healing and the routing takes zero work, and they all find each other. So if you wanted to talk from one node to the next, you don't have to do anything. They'll just send out a discovery packet and find each other. And the next time a packet comes within a simplex range of it and it sees that packet, it's just going to pass it on. This slide is kind of boring because there's really nothing to do. They've just really designed it so that there's not much tinkering on this part of the technology. Yes.
So I'm wondering if there's any routing, is there any kind of routing protocol, or how do you prevent loops? Because if you have a mesh, can you get your same packet?
So there is loop detection in the firmware. So every time a repeater sends out a packet, it adds its own ID to the packet. So that any person who receives that packet can see the path it took along the mesh network to figure out where it came from. And so the repeaters can use that to then figure out, all right, am I just receiving the same packet from myself that went back, forth, and back and forth and back and forth over and over and over again? And if it happens, it's actually configurable, the sensitivity to figuring out, okay, how many times have I heard my own packet? And I forgot what the defaults are, but I haven't encountered anything like a packet storm yet. There have been a couple of cases in Europe of, I think, a corrupted firmware that ended up spamming out sections of its own code. No one's quite sure how that happened. But someone managed to shut it off, but that's sort of unrelated to this routing situation.
In terms of this routing capability, say if you compare to the cell network or even the Viper network, what you're saying, it doesn't have central services like DNS routers, backbones for cell phone network. If they go down, even for the Viper, if that central controlling system goes down, the network is down, even though the physical layer is still working. So you're saying probably when things really start getting bad in communications, this is a more resilient capability. Just asking, is that a question?
100% accurate, sir. Yeah, it's completely self-healing. So if it has a list, if a given node has a list of neighbors that it previously knew about and one of them wasn't there anymore, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So the technology truly is perfect for emergency communications. Okay, next slide.
Hold on. One more. So I'm the Zoom operator, so I get my own microphone, but I would share it if anybody wanted to. Are we saying that the system has no capability of learning? Does it not remember any paths? If I know I want to talk to New York, does it always call South Carolina first?
Fantastic question. It is the nodes don't have any coordination between themselves, and so you as an end user with a pocket node, you can set a hot path to a destination if you want. Otherwise, it'll find its way to that node through the mesh.
To a remote destination or just to the next node?
The remote destination.
So if you want to send a direct message to someone, you can start by just sending a direct message, and that first message will essentially flood around the entire mesh. And then once it gets to where it's actually supposed to be going, it'll get a response back and through the path that it took to get to the intended sender. So it uses that the ID of each repeater that it passed along to sort of go, all right, I took this path to get here. I can probably take the same path back. And so once it learns that path, every single message that you then send, a direct message rather, it will take that exact same path instead of flooding the entire mesh with your message.
The sender learns?
Yes.
What keeps it from going through many paths?
There's a byte in the packet that says, don't flood this. This is only meant to go along this path. If this repeater matches this ID, yeah, go ahead, repeat it. If it doesn't match, you can read it, but don't do anything with it.
But the first one might go through a number of ways in a dense network.
Correct. That gives you reliability.
So you just pick one.
So the winner, what happens is the very first packet is going to go by flood. Let's say we have no idea what the path is to get to Wilson, for example. And what it will do then is flood. Something will succeed. Assuming something succeeds, that Wilson's machine will then look at the header in the packet that it successfully received, and it will send back a positive acknowledgement via that same path. It'll specify a particular path. Everybody else will drop the packet. And if it makes it back to you, then you will know, hey, I've found a successful path. Now, there may have been 11 of them, but the one that gets there and comes back to you, that's the one we're going to use. Now,
All right, everyone, our speakers have taken time out of their day to come. We have a limited amount of time for them to talk. Please, everyone,
Thank you.
hold your questions and comments and all these wonderful things until the end to give them to let them do their thing. And then I promise if we do that, we will have time for questions.
Aurora laying it down. Thank you, Aurora and Ron, and all the good questions. I think all the questions are great. This is the current view of the mesh in the triangle. And I hadn't seen it in a while. I just pulled it up this afternoon on my lunch break and dropped it in the slide here. And we've definitely got some redundant paths. Most of this mesh has been built with blood, sweat, and tears since January of this year. And I regretfully didn't show a map of what's beyond what's in this view here, but we have regular RF over-the-air communications, not just in the triangle, but out to Western North Carolina and Asheville, who has the densest mesh in the state, but only by a couple dozen nodes, with good reason after what happened with Hurricane Helene. So our friends out there got really into the mesh. Regularly talking out west through Tennessee all the way into Knoxville. We've got mesh all the way down south into Metro Atlanta, Eastern Kentucky, Roanoke, Virginia, Southeast Virginia. It is awesome. Just in the last 6 months, I don't know, what is it, July? Since January?
It's 7 months, and we've got an interstate. It's been 7 months, and we've managed to build an interstate communications network, which has been kind of unbelievable to watch as someone who had zero experience in radio before November. I got into it because I was like, oh, I've heard about this thing on YouTube, and I want to take it with me on a flight when I go and visit my family in Florida. And yeah, now I feel like I've had a hand in making this happen, which is kind of unbelievable.
Okay, next slide. MeshCore, is special, but doesn't do all the things. So I just wanted to shout out some of our other favorite protocols. It doesn't replace anything, but I think it fills a niche, and a niche that involves open source software and decentralized concepts and communications that's available for everybody in the community that is either just a nerd or likes emergency communications or is also a ham. I think is a good thing. I didn't go to Dayton Hamvention, but I think it was a bit of a trending topic at Dayton this year. And lots of ham call signs are showing up on the mesh, so it's a thing, y'all. Okay.
Okay, now this is where I was supposed to step in. So there are two different types of roles. Well, actually, technically, there's 4 different roles. There's sensors, which I have never seen anyone use. You have companions. So this is going to be your link to the mesh. And so these can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. This is one. This is one of them. This is a L1 Pro from a company called Seed Studio with 3 E's, not 2. This is honestly one of my favorite nodes, but basically this pairs to your phone over Bluetooth, and you use either the closed source. Yeah. So this is an example of a not standalone companion node. This is connected to your phone. You can see it has little displays. You can still like read messages and stuff like that, but most of the work will be done on your phone. The alternative to a phone-based node is one of these. This actually uses a BlackBerry keyboard and trackball. As well. I might be a display from a BlackBerry as well. It could definitely be the case. But this can operate entirely on its own. As you can see here, I've got a map pulled up. Yep, there we go. So those are a couple of the nodes that are around us right now. There is one on top of Okanichi Mountain, called Okanichi Repeater, I believe. Never Gonna Give You Up is somewhere further down below. These are a bit more expensive. However, when I say expensive, I mean it's still under $100. When I've seen the price of some of the ham equipment, I've had some serious sticker shock. When I see antennas or radios for hundreds or thousands of dollars, going back to mesh and seeing a little phone connected node like this, which costs $40, is really nice. Yeah, companions can be very cheap. They sort of have an upper limit on price unless you want to do something ridiculous, but most of the time it's made out of injection molded or 3D printed plastic. Most of mine I've designed and or printed myself. Yeah, and then the other option is, do you mind pulling this slides back up? All right. Next up is our repeaters. These are what actually sort of do most of the magic behind MeshCore, in that you get them up someplace high. This one was about 20 feet up or 20 meters up in a tree up until recently. These devices are such low power that you could just run them off of solar panels. In this case, these are not very fantastic solar panels, and they're not at the right angle, but this thing can run basically indefinitely on just solar power alone. These you cannot connect to with your phone. You have to have a companion node if you want to actually be able to send messages along the mesh. Otherwise, you're assisting the mesh, but you're not going to benefit from it at all unless you have a companion node. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
My left hand is a repeater, solar repeater, also made by Steve Studio. Thank you. It's really nice. It's under $100. Yeah, it comes with, or it takes four 18650 lithium ion cells. And this one is one that I built just out of an enclosure, and you can see the tiny LoRa board inside there. It's got a DC to DC buck converter. I think this one was in my truck for a little while. They're super easy to build. That's it.
All right. So I've kind of talked a little bit about what is on this slide already. But you've got two different options, standalone or something you connect to your phone. Oh, yep. We've got a pager back there. So this is a T-Deck. This is the most common standalone node, standalone companion. It's the best supported in terms of software. It's been out for many years at this point, actually. So that's one of the reasons why it's so well supported. Alrighty. The next slide, please. In terms of repeater builds, they can vary wildly. There are some builds which can be made for just $40, like the one on the left. That is known as the People's Repeater. It is made T-Deck, like Tango and then DECK. The one on the left can be made with parts from a $10 Lowe's Harbor Freight or a Lowe's Harbor Breeze light that costs $10. This actually is built using the solar panel from from that exact hardware right there. That build costs about $40. That is quite cheap. Higher budget builds can go very expensive depending on the type of cavity filter or antenna that you want to purchase. Sammy and I worked on assembling and putting together a repeater, which is now on top of the UNC hospital. It's about 50 meters off the ground, and that has coverage of what would you say, about 30 miles pretty easily. That costs about $400. The antenna was around 180. The cavity filter was about $90 to $100, and the rest of the hardware and poles and mounting, everything else is about $400. But you don't need to spend $400, which is the nice thing. You can spend 40. Height is might, though. You want to be able to get it up as high as possible. Tall buildings, tall trees, that's what's going to give you the best results. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's you. You do have the option of buying pre-built repeaters. The Seed P1 or P1 Pro is a fantastic option if you just want to buy something off the shelf. These just work really well. They're very well supported by software. You buy it, you strap it to a pole, and you're done. The batteries last forever. I mean, you can stick a ton of batteries in this thing, and it would probably last a month or 2 months with zero sunlight. And if you're in that position, you've got bigger problems than communicating with people. There's also another vendor called Peak Mesh on Etsy, whose hardware ranges in price between $90 to about $150. We have installed these in locations around Durham. They've been fantastic pieces of hardware. The battery can last about a month with zero sunlight. They charge fast. They're great. From what I can tell, he ships quickly. He sells a lot of them. They're good. If you're trying to get involved and you just want to purchase a piece of hardware that you can throw in a tree, honestly, a peak mesh altitude is one of the easiest things you can do. If you can mount an antenna in a tree, you can mount one of these in a tree. Next slide, please.
This is the last slide. Thank you so much for listening. And we're happy to take questions. Somebody asked a question in the chat about how we got up on the hospital, UNT hospital, and that's actually all thanks to Chris Cardwell over here. He made that connection, and I believe through Chapel Hill Fire, because they have a UHF repeater up there. True. Yeah. And so we just worked it out to build a node. The antenna that we used was actually the Comet KP20, which was retailing around $225 at the time. It's kind of unobtainium at the moment from DX Engineering because I think people are just throwing these repeaters up everywhere. That is about the best 900 megahertz antenna that you can get. I think it's about 9 dBi antenna. But we did take the opportunity to build a decent node for that site. Version 2, I think.
Version 2 is coming. The hardware that we installed up there has some issues with reception at longer ranges. I'm actually in a Discord server where a guy bought 20 of them and then also invited the manufacturer into it. So I'm talking it over with the manufacturer to try and figure out what the heck is going on with these things, because they should not be performing as badly as they do. Transmit performance is fantastic. I've seen it. I've gotten pings from it about 50 miles away, but you get about 15 to 20 miles out, you can't send messages to it anymore. So there's something going on with the receive chain in that piece of hardware. Yeah. Aurora.
So if one was trying to figure out good places to situate repeaters, is there a way to coordinate, say perhaps with a group?
So, there is the RDU Mesh website community Discord server. That is a great place to start. There is another tool that was developed by a local member of the community. It is called Mesh-O-Matic. Basically, it has a whole system set up so you can place points on the map, designate them as areas of interest, and simulate. Yeah. um yeah. Um, Basically, it provides a RF simulation of not just like the free space, but it also keeps track of the canopy height, buildings, or whether or not there's buildings there, and also even the type of trees being that are planted there to simulate what's the path loss, what's the correct uh amount of reception that people should receive at this location or with at this height. Uh, it's a fantastic tool. I have been using it religiously. I just got people set up in on the coast of New Jersey with it, and they're already starting to use it to simulate points for installation.
That brings up a really great point, Aurora, because I think one of the things that really led to the success of building out the mesh in the triangle is this website right here, because there is the ability to do surveying, also known as ward driving, with these nodes that you can pair with your phone. It's yet another app for your phone, and you can click start and drive around, just go about your business. Or, if you're a super nerd and want to spend your weekends and evenings mapping the mesh, it all gets aggregated onto sites like this, meshmapper.net and others. And we were able to see where the best places to put the mesh is, or where there were nulls in coverage and stuff like that. If you correlate it with other GIS data and, property records, or maybe property records don't matter. we, I think this played a really big part personally. We identified a lot of places to put these nodes up.
I just
Yes,
wanted to
Fred?
come back with 5 no's.
5 nodes?
No's. No license. No internet. No cell phone. No power. No coax.
Yeah. Yeah.
$50.
No brainer. Okay. We've got a question for Bruce.
Around like $80 for the standalone devices, which it's not bad. It's really in the grand scheme of amateur radio, $80 is kind of it's from what I can tell. That's with Paris. Stuff used to be even cheaper. I think
Mike.
These a completely standalone node is about $80. It used to be even cheaper. I think that some of these, especially some of the antennas, used to be like half the cost of what they are right now. And some of these nodes were like $15. Now they're more like 25 to 30 due to circumstances that I don't think are the correct thing to talk about in this meeting. But yeah, it is still cheap. It's not as cheap as it used to be, but it is still affordable.
So I think the answer to my question is going to be no, it's not really a problem. Okay, so here's the question. Is there an issue with the receiver front ends on these? Say you put a repeater up or you put a node up, and since higher is better, and it's up on a tower next to some ham radio antennas that happen to be running 1500 watts on multiple antennas, is the front end going to overload, or is it far enough away that it's not a problem from frequency perspective?
It's a problem. So when we installed that node at UNC, we also installed one of these. The issue with installing one of these is that we did not install any sort of filtration between the antenna and the front end on one of these devices. What else was on that building? Let's see. It was probably what, like a kilowatt of Viper, 800 megahertz.
Yes, it's actually a Viper site, and that runs on 800. 3 UHF repeaters are up there, and a couple of VHF too as well.
And the question you're asking is absolutely no different than our repeaters. The solution is cavity duplexers, which are very No, I'm saying think about 442150 on a tower that's got 50,000 watts above it at 520 megahertz, and we're operating on 442. But the solution to his question is the same thing we do. You put cavity duplexers on. They're expensive. They have loss, but they work.
So actually, that's another thing that's great about LoRa is there's a lot of really cheap Chinese stuff out there that works great. This is a mega-sized version of what's installed on UNC, but what's installed at UNC is $90 for a cavity filter, a good cavity filter. And again, I've seen the prices for some of these ham frequency cavity filters. It's
I will say putting these ones up in the tree is a different ball game than putting something up at an RF site. I also work at Chatham Emergency Management, and Chatham is also looking at emergency management, and Chatham Oxcom and the CERT folks down there are looking at deploying it at 6 of their Viper tower sites, which are 300 foot and above, inaccessible. It costs $5,000 a pop to, get a contractor to climb those. If you were interested in putting something up a tower, there's definitely a lot of other considerations. Bandpass filtering is definitely the primary thing that you definitely want to do. In addition to like a proper RF enclosure and, just supersize the engineering on everything just so that you don't have to climb up and tinker with it.
batteries too. Batteries are the thing you do not want to cheap out on if you're putting it on a tower. A lot of people will do like a lithium-ion pouch cell for repeaters, and I cannot recommend against doing that enough. With how hot our summers can get and how hot they're going to continue to get, lithium-ion pouch cells are at significantly higher risk of degrading to the point of being a fire risk. An 18650 cell or 21700 cell, or even a prismatic cell if you're going for lithium iron phosphate batteries. That's a whole different story in terms of fire safety and everything else. If I was putting a node on like a big fancy tower, it's going to go hundreds or thousands of feet up, I would probably go with the safest batteries I can, the largest batteries I can, the largest solar panel I can. It would be ridiculously expensive, but the factor of safety is so important up there.
My current reference design for the Viper tower site is about $700. Yeah. You could run PoE. There's definitely some ways to do a few different ways to do it.
I have about an hour of questions for you. This is the most
I bet.
This is the most fantastic answer I've ever seen looking for a question. My son runs a fish hatchery and he operates a LoRa network that measures water temperature in several remote locations around the hatchery. So now you know of one functional network. I wonder, I've asked everybody I've ever talked to about MeshCore who they talked to, and nobody has ever told me that they talked to anybody. So can can I call my girlfriend and ask her what I should fix for dinner? Have you ever talked to anybody?
Every day we just continue to just share the weather.
So
Same thing we do on ham radio.
so more usefully, can we get 911 on here? Can we get the fire department, the police department? You know, can I stand in my yard and with my
Yeah.
companion and say somebody's shooting at me and get an answer?
I've actually have current events that I can share on that. So very recently I was selected to chair a mesh working group with emergency management, NCEM. We just had our first kickoff meeting last Friday. And the public safety communications community is currently evaluating MeshCore. We're going to be looking at not just MeshCore, but really classifying and doing a survey of all the low bandwidth mesh technologies in addition to the broadband high speed stuff. Currently, there's not a lot of implementation of mesh for public safety. And folks are interested, fire departments are interested, emergency management.
It's already
they're interested.
implemented. You have tens of thousands of nodes. All somebody has to do is sit at the firehouse and watch the computer.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the holdup?
That's literally above my pay grade.
I just wanted to add to the conversation here, and that is, Wilson, you can't call the fire department with your radio either.
Let me take a shot at this, and it's really a question to you. The story you have described here has happened. The story and how it came about throughout my work career was the communications technology. This story has happened so many times with so many different technologies in terms of how it first comes into being. And the question I'm going to get to, you've obviously got a physical layer that can do great things. You've got the back control layer above it. Right now, you have relatively few applications as to what you actually use this system to do for you. Where do you think the world is, that situations are going to go in terms of application developed to really use this system to address how it all works and who can use it?
I think that's a great question, and I may be answering in a slightly sort of personal soapboxy way, but I think generally we see lots of technology that gets concentrated in the hands of corporations and sort of centralized infrastructure that we're all dependent on. And so if Verizon or AWS or AT&T or Motorola goes down, we get sad, and we can expand that to other things that we see in society, like let's say a central bank with one currency, or something like that, which is why, when we talked about helium earlier, blockchain technology and crypto and stuff had such a sort of interest from people on the internet, because people are clamoring for platforms and systems and architectures that are not dependent on vendors or corporations. People want to be able to have some stake and control in the communication systems they use. And right. Sure. Right. 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 And it's tough to replace some of this infrastructure that we rely on every day. However, I think people are clamoring for options, and I think decentralized protocols, and the reason why things like the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, complete tangent, is has the attention that it has is because of this sort of inherent decentralized design where we're not vulnerable to sort of these like single points of failure.
I'd like to throw out an application, and that is migratory animals. 15 years ago, I read about LoRa being used to track migratory animals, and I never heard any more. What a perfect application. You put a note on a bird and see where it goes.
Yeah. So yeah, this device was actually originally intended to be used for like package tracking, or like you slap it on a shipping. Huh? Yeah, asset tracking. That's the word I was looking for. Basically, you slap one of these in your shipping container, and this has a GPS in it. This can figure out exactly where it is in the world at any given time. It also supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth address scanning, or the hardware does. MeshCore does not. So you could basically go, all right, I'm going to station these devices around my warehouse or something, stick a tag on one of our boxes, and I can figure out exactly where in the warehouse this thing is based on the LoRa transmissions, the Bluetooth transmissions, and the Wi-Fi transmissions. Yeah, you can put it on your bulldozer. Yeah, but hey, you knew where it was until then. Yeah. Uh, yeah, AirTag is all Bluetooth. Yeah. Yep.
Does anyone ever interface these with things like high altitude balloons or model rocketry or anything like
Yes.
that?
Yes. People have put like little lightweight tiny versions of these with tiny batteries up on drones and use them to figure out, all right, who can I talk to from up here, or how high up do I actually need to get to be able to break out of my wall of trees? Because trees are a massive source of interference for 900 megahertz. I mean, trees are a piece of are going to interfere with every transmission, but 900 megahertz is particularly bad for it. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't know.
Did you say that the thing you were waving around? Yes.
This can do GPS
Through MeshCore.
Through MeshCore, you can set it up as a tracker. If you wanted to, you might be able to use the sensor firmware. But again, I think like if you check the global statistics of all MeshCore devices, there's like 50 sensors on the map out of like what is like 100,000 devices now across the world that have their location uploaded. So basically, no one uses sensors.
I think, though, there's also an understanding that if the target is moving, for example, tracking in an SAR situation or using TAC, that's best done on Meshtastic. And then if this is a fixed location and a communication, and MeshCore is far and away superior to Meshtastic. So it's a matter of understanding the application and how to use it.
They're gonna steal this back. MeshCore is very good for the sort of infrastructure level. You want to be able to talk to people reliably from a fairly standard or static location. MeshCore is not going to work as well if you're like hiking through the mountains in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There have been some software changes to make it a little bit easier, where up until like a couple months ago, companions could not repeat messages at all. It just wasn't a thing. Now they can, with some limitations. Companions cannot repeat any messages on like the standard mesh frequency. You have to tune your companion to be on a specific frequency that is not the main frequency. For the US, it's 919 megahertz. If you have it set to anything other than that, the firmware will not let you do a companion level message repeating. It's one of the issues with Meshtastic was that because you have every single device repeating every single message it ever receives, you get a lot of airtime issues. Because everything's repeating everything it ever heard. And if you get more than like 50 or 60 devices up kind of close to each other, you can't send anything. Nothing works. It all breaks down. MeshCore, because you have a centralized repeater, that's sort of handling all the repeating. It uses significantly less airtime.
Architecture had to deal with, basically.
It's a hard.
Just a quick question on this one. With the development of the mesh communications and all that, and future developments, do you see that mesh communications being more of a companion to ham radio, or an eventual replacement of it?
I think it's a compliment. Yeah, Laura is not going to do any voice, so it's low bandwidth. Very well. It's not going to do voice very well. Yeah. I think that I think there's just space in the communications world for all of it. I think it's great experimentation to explore this. There's no mesh technology in Part 97 that I know of. So maybe there could be a fork of this for Part 97, and that might be interesting to play with, but we'll see. I mean, I think that there absolutely could be. Just looking at some of the stuff that Joe Taylor has done, it's just such like innovative design with some of his protocols. I would say there's definitely potential there for like a mesh application using ham bands.
Yeah. Orthogonal. Whole story. We used to send huge long strings of sine waves, CW tones. In the development of communications, with different ways of encoding, like teletype used a 5-digit or 5 characters to represent a limited set of letters. And it goes on to where, instead of listening to a complete sine wave, phase encoding, where I start looking for minute shifts in a phase, getting shorter and shorter and shorter, to where ODFM, it's looking at the 4 points that a single sine wave makes a crossing and can encode information into each of those points of a sine wave. That's an incredible improvement. And the previous symbol reinforces synchronization of the next coming, and that's a huge problem. You think about when you send CW, how much dead time are you putting between characters just so somebody knows the beginning and the end of a character? And even the dead time you're putting between the dots and dashes, that's all wasted bandwidth. But you have to do it to maintain synchronization. That's something we never talk about, but that's common to all protocols. And the progress has been made of how you can pack more and more data
on a smaller and smaller piece of RF and maintain synchronization. That's the leap in technology we've lived through.
I think we really have to appreciate the speed of the innovation that's going on. I mean, I've been totally impressed with you guys and the 6 months that I've known you. But in the 6 months I've known you,
I
you
did
put
write it.
together a network. Okay.
But I will bring up a point, which is that last week or two, the NTIA had a hearing in the House subcommittee, and they're looking at auctioning off 500 megahertz of federal spectrum to, and I assume because they use the word auction means they're going to sell to a corporation. But, you know, I don't know if the ARL is looking at advocating for some more spectrum so that we have space in the spectrum to play with more technology. I don't know what their stance on it, but you know, if I think if we had access to more spectrum, particularly in the microwave bands, just to sort of keep up with the Joneses of these corporations and SpaceX's of the world developing technology there, then I think it would be prudent for amateurs to do so as well.
I don't remember the chart, but we have bandwidth all through the spectrum, which is mostly not used. What about bad actors? Could a bad actor flood this thing and shut it down?
Currently, that would definitely be a vulnerability for the protocol. You can, the developers are currently looking at, you know, adding features to blacklist nodes and scope the traffic better. And that would be definitely something to consider if you were going to do like public safety, you know,
If you just
cases on
you just addressed a message to all the nodes you could think of, it would load the system pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So there are some pieces of software that are built around MeshCore. There is one called OpenHop. It runs on a full desktop computer or a single board computer, more realistically, like a Raspberry Pi or something like that. That has significantly better tools for moderation. So you can do stuff with OpenHop like block-specific strings, block-specific senders, because you have a lot more compute on a full Linux computer than you do on basically the same chip that runs your wireless headphones. Because that's what these run on. It's an NRF 52 is what most of the battery powered nodes run on. That's what runs most wireless headphones or like Logitech mice, for example. They run on the same microprocessors that these run on. The only difference, I'm sorry. Yeah, this probably uses an NRF chip somewhere inside of it. Nordic Semiconductor makes a whole lot of stuff. Power management controllers, radio frequency stuff, or I mean, yeah, there's always going to be an issue where you can also just blast out across the entire 902 to 928 megahertz band. I mean, you'll probably get caught pretty quickly, but yeah, there's you can also just block the frequency.
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the news recently, you've seen some actors doing some satellite-based jamming of GPS signals. Yep. Yeah.
Should we go back to HL?
Yeah, probably not. Yep, definitely. Oh yeah. Yep. Let's see what else is there. Yeah, I mean, OpenHop provides a lot of the moderation tools that you might not have. Oh yeah, 10 Mesh. Here we go. So this is being run by the Comms channel, which is a YouTube channel. Who basically he was the one who made me kind of think, all right, maybe MeshCore is something to look into. And yeah, it was definitely something to look into.
So I don't see why when I do this at home, I see packets, I see messages.
Give it a sec to load. It can be a bit slow sometimes. It should start throwing packets around fairly soon.
Programmers have been at it.
There we go. Oh,
At home, it's black and white. It doesn't have all this fancy stuff, and you can see it.
oh. But yeah, so that's basically a map of what the mesh looks like currently. I don't remember when the last time he restarted it was, but you can see the density that we're working with in the Raleigh area, the RDU area. We're doing pretty well up there. Once you start getting a bit further west, Greensboro just is basically completely dead. There's like 2 people who have installed mesh repeaters in the entirety of Greensboro. It's very sad. We're yeah 4C XL1.
If you watch for
the
a
only
while,
one.
you see messages go up into Virginia and west, and then back down into Tennessee and North Carolina.
So there's a bit of shenanigans with how it determines which packets got sent to and from where. By default, it only uses 1 byte, so you only have 2 characters, so you can get a lot of collisions. So sometimes you'll see packets take hops that really shouldn't be possible, and that's because there was a packet collision. The firmware now supports 2 and 3 byte repeater addressing, though that drops you from 64 hops down to 32, and then for 3 byte, it drops you down to 21 maximum hops. 21 hops is still ridiculous, by the way. The furthest message that I've ever seen, I think took something like 30 hops, maybe. And I forget where that came from, but it might have been Connecticut. Which I mean that there's also due to some ducting. If you zoom out, you actually might be able to see some of the repeaters that got picked up fairly recently. Yep. So this is stuff they got picked up this morning up in Pennsylvania, and up near New York. That again, 1/8 of a watt. With weather conditions just right, it'll bounce off. It'll bounce around up in the clouds. I've seen messages from Apex that took about an hour to get delivered. I don't know what they were doing up there, but it went like from Apex down to Atlanta and then back up to Raleigh and then back to Durham. And it took an hour. So I don't know what it was doing up there, but it was having some fun. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable to see the density, especially once you get down into Tennessee. It's really unbelievable how bonkers they've gone down there, to the point where they're having to try and manage the bandwidth that repeater advertisements are taken up, because every advert, it's a fairly large packet. It's a lot of information. It's the precise location, it's the name, it's the full ID of the repeater. It's a big amount of information. And if it gets passed around every single one of those repeaters, it takes up a lot of airtime. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Developers are fixing it.
I just have one more question. I think we're gonna wrap it up because especially Aurora's been great and making sure to wrangle the cats that are this club. So I studied biology at a engineering university, and I currently now work in the registrar office at UNC. So I'm not as smart as many of the engineering folks here, but my main question is, let's say someone just wants to get started in MeshCore, something that they can just play around with, but not sink a lot of money in. What would you recommend?
What I would recommend is purchasing one of these little tags and seeing what you can do. This is a T1000E. This is like $50 off of Amazon. You'll probably get it tomorrow. Realistically, you will need something outside of your house, or at the very least in your attic, preferably in a tree or on your roof, in order to get the best results. Obviously, I live in an apartment. I didn't have a roof to put anything on. There is an empty tree by my apartment that I commandeered along with a group of other people. And so, again, this was my first version of the repeater that went up in that tree. I've got a second generation up there now that is way smaller. Uses actually the same solar panels, but they're much better angled. Performs way better in terms of solar power. It's kind of ridiculous how much better it goes, even with only 2 panels instead of 3. Yeah, no coax. You don't have to buy coax. And realistically, some of the best antennas that you can purchase are about $15 to $20. In terms of price to performance, a MusicWorks whip is made by a company called Geizont over in China. It's about 1.5 decibels of gain compared to isotropic. And they're good. And it's $15 off of Amazon. Otherwise, an alpha antenna, which I actually don't have. Oh, yeah. This is a $17 antenna. Don't buy it off of Amazon, though. There are so many fakes out there. They're really, really good. They're so hard to beat in price to performance. Yep. Yes. So Seed Studio actually has like a bundle you can purchase on their website where you can buy basically one of these or one of these or both of those together and also one of these, and you get like a 15% discount on everything. You can buy just one of each. You can buy however many of each that you want. Yeah.
If you get a companion, I like to tell people that putting a repeater node outside your house is basically the same as an outside antenna for your dual bander. It'll just help you get outside the house, and typically that works if you do have like a elevated node like in your area, and if you're at UNC or live in Chapel Hill, you shouldn't have any problem.
If you're in Chapel Hill, you will be able to hear Tar Heel backhaul. That is the one that is on top of the big building. Yeah, or you'll hear Okanichi Mountain. And there was a repeater up until about 5 days ago, way up north on top of a 100-meter tall tower, with a very high gain. No one knows, including the person who installed that repeater, what exactly the antenna is that's up there, but that has a range of about 100 miles. So that gets us into Roanoke directly from a little bit south of Roxborough. It died. We think it might have been in the thunderstorm. There's no lightning protection on it. The guy who installed it might be able to check it out tomorrow.
Yeah. Also, apparently, the DB420 UHF repeater antenna works, and folks have been running MeshCore with the diplexer on those repeaters that are already installed. I have to read about it.
Yes. So we're rolling it out instead. That's one thing we're trying.
So that's happening. So one of the developers of MeshCore lives in New Zealand, and the whole design behind MeshCore was Meshtastic actually failed during a severe weather event in New Zealand because Meshtastic was not very well designed for mass communication. Lots of people sending lots of messages all at the same time. The network couldn't keep up with it. Data rate wasn't fast enough, And Meshtastic also has an issue where every node sends out a ton of telemetry all the time. It's gotten better, but the fact is, it's still not as quiet as MeshCore is. That's one of the reasons why MeshCore works so well, is that a lot of these devices just shut up and only talk when they absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna hang on, Dan. I know everyone has a lot more comments and questions, but it's getting pretty late, and especially since I have to edit and do everything with the video, I'm gonna say call this the end, but we could still talk to Sammy and Ev. I want to thank you guys so much for coming
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting us.
And we can discuss more at the August 10th meeting. Thank you so much. Have a nice night, everyone.